I think mainly like the joy of the period, because it's, you know, what is it, 60 years ago or something? Yeah, I think if people see the wonder of the period and the kind of innocence of it all.
What if I told you that one of the most famous musicians in the world still wakes up every single day, like he's just starting his career? What if I told you that at almost 83 years old, Paul McCartney has a daily routine so simple, yet so powerful that it's kept him creating hit songs for more than 60 years? You might think someone his age would be sitting in a rocking chair, telling old stories about the Beatles. But you'd be completely wrong. Paul McCartney is doing something every day that will blow your mind. It's not what you think. It's not expensive equipment or fancy studios. It's something so basic that anyone can do it. Yet it's the secret behind his endless creativity. And when you hear what this legendary musician does from the moment he opens his eyes until he goes to bed, you'll never look at creativity the same way again. Picture this. It's early morning in the English countryside. Most people are still sleeping, but Paul McCartney is already awake. He's not checking his phone or scrolling through social media like the rest of us. Instead, he's doing something that sounds almost too simple to be the secret of a music legend. But trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why this one habit has kept him at the top of his game for decades. Paul McCartney isn't just any musician. He's the man who helped create some of the most beloved songs in history. From Yesterday to Hey Jude, from Let It Be to Live and Let Die, his music has touched billions of lives around the world. He's sold more records than almost any other artist in history. He's been knighted by the Queen of England. He's a living legend who could easily rest on his incredible achievements. But here's the thing that makes Paul McCartney truly special. He doesn't act like a legend who's finished with his work. Every single day, he treats creativity like it's the most important. The beautiful thing about this routine is that Paul has been doing it for decades. Whether he's getting ready for a world tour, working on a new album, or just enjoying some time off, he always starts his day the same way. Rain or shine, summer or winter, Paul and his dog take that walk together. It's become such an important part of his creative process that he can't imagine starting a day without it. Think about that for a moment. One of the most successful musicians in history starts every day with a simple walk in nature. No fancy equipment, no expensive tools. Just him, his dog, and the peaceful countryside around his farm. It shows us that creativity doesn't come from complicated methods or expensive gear. Sometimes the most powerful creative practices are the simplest ones. After his morning walk and a simple breakfast, Paul heads to what might be the most interesting room in his entire house. It's his music room, and it's filled with more instruments than most music stores. But Paul doesn't just collect these instruments to look at them. He uses them in a way that keeps his creativity fresh and exciting, even after all these years. Every single day, Paul does something that most musicians never think to do. He rotates between different instruments throughout the day. 1 hour he might be playing guitar. The next hour he could be at the piano. After that, he might pick up his bass guitar or try out a different instrument entirely. This might sound random, but it's actually one of the smartest things any creative person can do. Here, quote, why this works so well. Each instrument makes Paul's brain think in different ways. When he plays the bass guitar, he starts thinking about rhythm and the foundation of a song. When he sits at the piano, he focuses more on melody and harmony. When he picks up an acoustic guitar, he often writes more personal and intimate songs. By Essa, just like other professionals have regular work hours, Paul sets aside specific time each day just for writing new music. He treats creativity as both an art and a discipline. This practice goes all the way back to his Beatles days when he and John Lennon would meet regularly to write songs together. They had a simple rule that Paul still follows today. If they didn't have a song by lunchtime, they would make some lunch and keep working until they did. This might sound like pressure, but Paul sees it differently. He knows that inspiration loves people who show up consistently. By dedicating time every day to writing, he's always ready when a great idea comes along. During these office hours, Paul works on multiple projects at the same time. He might be writing lyrics for one song while figuring out the chord progression for another song. This multitasking approach keeps his mind engaged and helps prevent creative blocks. Paul also uses these office hours to organize his vast collection of musical ideas. Over the decades, he's written down thousands of song fragments, melodies, and lyrics. He keeps detailed notes about all his musical ideas, creating a huge resource that he can draw from whenever he needs inspiration. Sometimes he'll pull out a melody he wrote 20 years ago and turn it into a brand new song. One of the most important things Paul has learned is that it's okay to write bad songs during these sessions. He understands that creativity requires quantity as well as quality. Not every song he writes is going to be a masterpiece, and that's perfectly fine with him. He knows that breakthrough songs often come after periods of experimentation that might not seem productive at the time. This mindset takes a lot of pressure off the creative process. Instead of expecting every song to be perfect, Paul focuses on showing up consistently and staying open to whatever wants to come through him. Some days he writes songs that he loves immediately. Other days he writes songs that don't work at all. But he shows up anyway because he knows that consistency is the key to long-term creative success. But creativity isn't just about the mind. At 82, Paul understands better than most people that the body and mind are connected. If one isn't working well, the other suffers too. That's why a huge part of Paul's daily routine focuses on taking care of his physical and mental health. Every day, Paul makes time for physical exercise. He practices yoga regularly and does stretching and light resistance exercises. This isn't about vanity or trying to look young. It's about practical necessity. Paul still performs 3-hour concerts that require incredible stamina. He spends long hours in recording studios. His body needs to be strong and flexible to handle the demands of his creative and performance schedule. Paul has been a vegetarian since the 1970s, and he credits this lifestyle choice with helping him maintain the energy he needs for his demanding schedule. He once said something that really shows his compassion and awareness. He said that if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be vegetarian. His plant-based diet isn't just about personal health. It's about living in harmony with his values and beliefs. Mental health is just as important to Paul as physical health. Every day he practices meditation for 10 to 20 minutes. This is a habit he developed during the Beatles' famous trip to India in 1968. These meditation sessions provide the mental clarity and emotional balance that Paul needs for sustained creative work. Paul also makes sure he gets enough sleep and manages his stress levels. He understands that creativity suffers when the mind and body are exhausted. His peaceful life in the countryside naturally supports these goals. Away from the noise and chaos of city life, Paul can get the restorative rest that his creative mind needs to function at its best. Living on a farm also connects Paul with the natural rhythms of life. He sees the seasons change. He watches plants grow and animals live their lives. This connection with nature feeds his creativity in ways that living in a busy city never could. The rolling hills, ancient trees, and changing seasons provide a constantly evolving backdrop that stimulates his artistic imagination. Even at almost 83 years old, Paul McCartney spends part of each day thinking about the future. This might be the most remarkable thing about him. While many people his age are focused on the past, Paul continues to dream and plan like someone who's just starting their career. Every day, Paul dedicates time to working on what he calls legacy projects. He's organizing decades of recordings, photographs, and memorabilia so that future generations can learn from his incredible career. But this archival work isn't just about looking backward. It's actively creative. As Paul goes through his old materials, he often rediscovers forgotten songs or musical fragments that inspire new compositions. Some of his recent albums have included reworked versions of ideas that are decades old. This shows how his daily routine creates connections between his past creativity and his present work. Songs that didn't quite work 30 years ago might be perfect for today. Melodies he hummed during a morning walk in 1985 might become the foundation of a song he releases in 2025. Paul also uses part of his daily routine to mentor younger musicians and support music education. Through his various foundations and personal outreach, he shares the creative wisdom he's gained over 6 decades in the music industry. He understands that his knowledge and experience are valuable gifts that should be shared with the next generation of artists. But perhaps most remarkably, Paul continues to plan future projects with the enthusiasm and excitement of someone a quarter of his age. His daily routine includes time for what he calls dreaming and scheming about upcoming albums, tours, and collaborations. This forward-thinking approach keeps him mentally young and creatively engaged. Paul doesn't see his age as a limitation. Instead, he sees it as an advantage. All those years of experience have taught him what works and what doesn't. He's learned to trust his instincts and follow his creative impulses without second-guessing himself. He's developed the confidence that comes from decades of successful creative work. The secret to Paul McCartney's enduring creativity isn't any single magic trick or special talent. It's the combination of discipline, curiosity, health consciousness, and genuine love for music that shapes every aspect of his daily routine. He's proven that creativity is like a muscle that gets stronger with consistent use. At almost 83 years old, Paul remains living proof that creativity doesn't have an expiration date. Age doesn't have to mean the end of our most productive and inspired years. In fact, it can mean the beginning of our wisest and most meaningful creative work. Paul's routine teaches us that creativity is a practice, not just a talent that some people are born with. By showing up consistently, staying curious about the world around us, taking care of our physical and mental health, and maintaining our sense of wonder, we can continue growing and creating throughout our entire lives. The most beautiful thing about Paul's daily routine is how simple it really is. Morning walks with his dog, rotating between different instruments, setting aside time each day for writing, taking care of his body and mind, working on future projects. None of these activities require special equipment or expensive training. They just require commitment, consistency, and a genuine love for the creative process. Paul McCartney's daily routine proves that the most powerful creative practices are often the simplest ones. You don't need a fancy studio or expensive equipment to be creative. You don't need to wait for inspiration to strike like lightning. You just need to show up every day with an open mind and a willingness to explore. His story reminds us that it's never too late to start a creative practice or restart one that we've abandoned. Whether you're 18 or 80, whether you're a beginner or an expert, whether you have 5 minutes or 5 hours, you can develop a daily routine that nurtures your creativity and keeps your passion alive. The next time you think your best creative days are behind you, remember Paul McCartney walking across his farm with his dog, humming new melodies at almost 83 years old. Remember him sitting at his piano, approaching each instrument with beginner's mind after more than 60 years of playing. Remember him setting aside time each day to write, treating creativity as both a discipline and a joy. What aspect of Paul McCartney's daily creative routine inspired you the most? Maybe it was his morning walks in nature, or his practice of rotating between instruments, or his dedication to showing up for creativity every single day. Whatever it was, I want you to think about how you might apply some of these principles to your own life. If this story inspired you to think differently about creativity and aging, please hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their most creative days might still be ahead of them. And make sure to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories about people who refuse to let age limit their dreams. Remember, creativity is a renewable resource that grows stronger with consistent cultivation. Paul McCartney's amazing daily routine proves that as long as we stay curious, stay disciplined, and stay passionate about what we love, There's no limit to what we can create. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.